The stars hung silent over the dark stretch of space far beyond the known trade routes. The Empire's fleet drifted in formation like a line of steel ghosts, their metallic hulls catching faint light from a dying sun. There was no sound, no movement, only the endless hum of reactors and the cold emptiness of the void. Admiral Kraith stood at the center of his flagship's bridge, his posture sharp, his reptilian eyes scanning the screens before him. The mission was simple: hunt down what was left of humanity. For generations, the Empire of Dravok had told stories of humans, how they once challenged the galaxy and fell. To most Imperial officers, humans were now just a rumor, a ghost from another age. Kraith believed that too, until that night. A soft tone echoed through the command deck. The communications officer, a young cadet with trembling hands, turned from her station. "Admiral, we are receiving something." Kraith frowned. "From where?" I do not know, sir." "It's faint. Very old frequency pattern." The Admiral approached, his boots clicking against the polished floor. "Play it." The bridge filled with a low, rhythmic pulse. It was not Imperial. It was not natural interference. It was deliberate, slow, repeating, coded. Kraith narrowed his eyes. "Is it possible? That is Terran?" The officer hesitated. "The encryption matches the human structure recorded in ancient archives, sir. It should not exist anymore." A quiet murmur spread among the crew. Some exchanged nervous glances. Others tried to hide their fear. The Empire had burned Earth centuries ago. The last known Terran fleet was destroyed above the ashes of Mars. There should be nothing left to answer. Kraith straightened, his tail flicking in irritation. "Humans are dust. This is probably some echo from a lost satellite. Presume our patrol." He turned away, dismissing the idea. But as he did, the radar screens flickered. The faint signal changed tone like a heartbeat skipping a beat. Then again, and again. The technician spoke quickly, panic creeping into his voice. "Sir, there's a spatial disturbance forming near Grid 7. Kraith spun around. "Show me." The holographic display shifted, showing a field of stars. There, just behind the fleet, a distortion shimmered like heat waves. The Imperial ships adjusted formation. Weapons were powered. Targeting scanners activated, but the anomaly only grew stronger. "Could it be a cloaked vessel?" asked Commander Threx, Kraith's second-in-command. "No ship could mask a signature that large," Kraith said, stepping closer to the viewport. "Not even ours." Static crackled through the ship's speakers. A voice, old digital human, broke through the noise. "This is Terran Command Relay 9. Activating emergency beacon. Authentication code, Earth alive." The crew froze. For a heartbeat, the entire ship was silent. Then chaos erupted. Officers shouted. Screens flashed red warnings, and every Imperial ship in the sector received the same transmission. Kraith slammed his fist on the control rail. "Impossible. Earth was destroyed." Commander Threx swallowed hard. "Sir, what if it was not?" The Admiral turned to him, eyes burning. "You mean to tell me that humanity survived a full planetary cleansing? That they hid from us for centuries?" No one answered. The hum of the engines was the only sound. Then the light outside the viewport dimmed. The stars seemed to vanish behind a curtain of distortion. The space behind the Imperial fleet began to ripple like liquid. One of the crew whispered, "Something is coming through." Kraith's voice was steady now, but his scales shimmered under the tension. "All ships, lock weapons. Prepare to fire." The space ahead pulsed once, then burst open with light. For a moment, everyone on the bridge shielded their eyes. When they looked again, they saw it, a massive triangular shadow emerging from the void. The distortion peeled away, revealing smooth black armor, engraved with markings none had seen for centuries. The ship was unlike anything the Empire had built. Its hull absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Its engines glowed with a cold blue flame that hummed like thunder. The vessel was colossal, larger than any Imperial dreadnought, yet it moved with the grace of a predator. Kraith felt his throat dry. What is that?" The communications officer whispered. "It bears human design patterns, sir, but far, far more advanced." The ship continued to emerge, its structure revealing massive turrets and long plasma barrels aligned along its wings. Then a name appeared in pale white letters across the hull. TNS Vengeance. Every officer on the bridge froze. The silence was suffocating. Kraith finally spoke, his voice a strained whisper. "I want a full scan, immediately." "Scanning?" "But the system cannot read through its armor." the technician replied. It's jamming all frequencies. The Admiral stared through the viewport. The Terran ship hovered motionless, almost majestic in its calm. Then a new signal appeared on every Imperial console. The voice that followed was deep, calm, and unmistakably human. To the Empire of Dravok, this system is under Terran jurisdiction. Leave or face judgment, Kraith's claws curled. Judgment? From ghosts. He turned sharply. Power all weapons. Target that ship. I want it destroyed. Every cruiser around the flagship aligned, their cannons glowing red. Plasma energy charged through the fleet, lighting the dark sky. But before they could fire, the human ship moved, slowly, deliberately. The space around it rippled again, and thousands of small lights appeared. Fighter drones, metallic and silent, forming a ring around the Vengeance like a crown. A chill ran down Kraith's spine. He suddenly understood what he was facing. Humanity had not died. It had waited. The Admiral's final words before the first shot were quiet, almost reverent. So, the ghosts return. Outside, the human battleship's engines flared and the darkness of space turned to fire. The darkness of space turned bright as the Terran battleship fully emerged from its cloak. Its hull gleamed like obsidian steel, reflecting the pale glow of distant stars. The enormous triangular ship floated in silence, dwarfing every Imperial vessel around it. Its presence alone was enough to make even seasoned officers hesitate. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kraith gripped the railing so hard his claws dug grooves into the metal. His second-in-command, Commander Threx, stared at the readings in disbelief.
Admiral, that ship.
It is not in any record. Its energy levels exceed anything in the database. Kraith's voice was low. You are telling me that humans built something we cannot even scan? Before Threx could respond, the holographic map flared. A pulse of energy radiated from the Terran ship, spreading across the field like a shockwave. It jammed every Imperial system for several seconds. When the light stabilized, half the fleet's communication grid was down. Sir, our long-range sensors are blind, shouted a technician. We cannot lock onto them. Kraith's gaze hardened. Blind or not, we are still the Empire. Fire at will! Across the void, hundreds of plasma cannons glowed bright red. Beams of energy shot forward, cutting through the darkness toward the Terran warship. The explosions lit up the emptiness like a storm of dying suns. When the light faded, the human battleship remained untouched. Its shields rippled softly as if brushing off dust. Then, with an almost lazy grace, it rotated to face the fleet. On the command deck of the TNS Vengeance, Captain Elias Rourke stood motionless. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, filled with a cold determination. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders. Status? Rourke asked. All systems optimal. Shields at full strength. No damage detected, reported his second officer, a woman with dark hair and a steady voice. Rourke nodded. The Empire fires first, as expected. He walked to the center of the bridge, where a large holographic projection showed the enemy fleet, hundreds of ships forming a wall of firepower. Transmit on all Imperial frequencies. A short pause. Then his voice carried across the void, reaching every Imperial ship. To the Empire of Dravok, you invaded, enslaved, and burned our worlds. You declared humanity extinct, but the sons and daughters of Earth still breathe. Leave now, or share the fate you once gave us. On the Imperial bridge, Kraith's expression twisted from fear to fury. He dares to threaten us? Destroy them! All ships full barrage. The second wave came faster. Missiles, energy beams, disruptor charges. The Vengeance held its ground. Each strike that hit its shields scattered harmlessly like raindrops against glass. Captain Rourke did not flinch. Weapons online. Target their command vessels. Fire when ready. The Vengeance unleashed its wrath. From the ship's wings, massive railgun barrels glowed blue. A second later, 2 kinetic slugs shot forward at near light speed. The impact was instant. The first Imperial cruiser exploded in a sphere of molten metal. The second shattered in silence, torn apart by invisible force. The human ship fired again. This time, a long beam of plasma carved through 4 enemy ships in one pass. The explosions painted the stars in orange and gold. Impossible, whispered Commander Threx. Their weapon. No delay, no energy loss, no recoil. Kraith roared, keep firing. Do not let them advance. But it was too late. The Vengeance moved like a ghost, its engines glowing brighter. It cut through the Imperial formation, firing with precision. Every shot hit. Every impact destroyed. The Empire's perfect order collapsed into chaos. Inside the Vengeance, Rourke watched the enemy fleet scatter. No coordination, he said softly. They relied too much on fear. Let us show them what real discipline looks like. His crew worked in perfect rhythm. Missiles arced through the darkness, guided by invisible networks. Drones swarmed out from the ship's sides, cutting through smaller Imperial craft like knives through fabric. The bridge was calm, illuminated by soft blue light and the quiet hum of machinery. In the middle of the storm, Rourke's voice stayed steady. They will not remember our names, he said, but they will remember this day. A warning alarm sounded. One Imperial dreadnought, the Valkar, was powering its supercannon. The weapon could vaporize moons. Rourke's first officer called out, "Sir, they are charging their main gun." Rourke nodded once. "Let them." Seconds later, the massive beam fired. It tore through the void, aimed straight for the Vengeance. It struck and vanished. The human ship shimmered, its form flickering like a mirage. The beam passed through, dispersing harmlessly into space. The Vengeance had phased. Kraith's jaw dropped. "They can shift through dimensions," he whispered. When the ship reappeared, it was behind the Imperial dreadnought. Rourke gave a single command. "Fire!" A railgun slug pierced the dreadnought's core. The explosion lit up half the sector. Debris scattered like sparks across the sky. On the Empire's communication channels, screams and static filled the air. Every surviving officer watched in horror as one of their strongest ships vanished in light. Kraith staggered back, his confidence shattering. That cannot be human technology." From the speakers, Rourke's voice returned, calm, cold. "You called us primitive. You said we were finished. You forgot that humans don't die quietly." Then the transmission ended. The Vengeance advanced again, its railguns heating up for another strike. The once invincible Imperial fleet was falling apart. Command ships fled. Smaller vessels scattered in panic. On his bridge, Captain Rourke stood still, eyes fixed on the stars. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "For every world they burned, we will burn their pride." The Vengeance's engines roared, glowing like a new sunrise over the ruins of the Empire's fleet. Humanity had returned. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars above burned with silent light as the battlefield became a graveyard. Pieces of broken ships drifted like ash, glowing faintly in the reflection of distant suns. The once mighty Imperial fleet, known across the galaxy for its unstoppable power, was in ruin. Flames and debris filled the void where disciplined formations once stood. From the command bridge of the TNS Vengeance, Captain Elias Rourke watched the destruction unfold. His face was calm, but behind his steady eyes was a quiet fire, one that had burned for generations. "Status," he said. "Enemy fleet reduced by 70%, reported his second officer. Remaining ships are retreating, but some are regrouping behind their flagship." Rourke studied the map. A few Imperial vessels, broken and desperate, gathered in a last stand near a dying moon. Their admiral refused to surrender. The Empire's pride would not allow it. He gave a faint nod. "They still believe power alone wins wars. Let us remind them what drives humans." He turned toward the viewport. "Arm railguns 2 through 6. Target the flagship's escorts. Do not waste ammunition. 1 shot per ship." Outside, the Vengeance adjusted its massive cannons. The barrels glowed with a low blue light. A heartbeat later, streaks of light shot forward. Silent, invisible bullets faster than thought. Each one found its mark. Each one ended a ship. Inside the Imperial flagship, alarms wailed. The bridge shook violently as explosions flared across the hull. Admiral Kraith clung to his chair, shouting commands. "Stabilize shields. Return fire. Do not give them the satisfaction of our fear." His officers obeyed, but deep inside, terror had already taken root. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had crushed rebellions, silenced civilizations. Yet against this single human ship they were helpless. One officer stammered, "Admiral, their weapons bypass every defense. It's as if our shields don't exist." Kraith's claws dug into his chair. "Then we fight until nothing remains."
"If the Empire falls, we will fall as soldiers."
His words carried strength, but his eyes betrayed him. Behind his fury was disbelief. How could humans, a species written off as extinct, wield such power? The Vengeance fired again. The railguns ignited like miniature stars. their impact tearing through the Empire's remaining cruisers. "Enemy formation breaking," said Rourke's tactical officer. Rourke folded his hands behind his back. "Good, they remember fear again." A moment of silence followed. The crew watched as Imperial ships tried to retreat. Some collided, others self-destructed to avoid capture. Rourke could have ended it there. But vengeance was not just about destruction. It was about truth. "Open channel to their admiral," Rourke ordered. The connection formed, and Admiral Kraith's furious face appeared on the main screen. Sparks lit the air behind him as his flagship burned. "Human," Kraith hissed, his voice trembling between rage and fear. "You dare challenge the Empire? You were supposed to be extinct." Rourke's voice was quiet, almost cold. "We were supposed to be forgotten. But you made sure we could never forget you." Kraith slammed his fist down. "You think one ship can stand against an empire?" Rourke tilted his head slightly. "One ship is enough to remind you that humanity endures. You tried to erase us, Admiral. Instead, you made us eternal." The transmission ended before Kraith could reply. "Prepare final volley," Rourke said softly. His officers obeyed without hesitation. The Vengeance's energy core glowed brighter, its systems humming with lethal rhythm. The railguns realigned. But then, something unexpected appeared on the sensors, hundreds of smaller energy signatures. The Vengeance's AI identified them instantly. Escape pods. Dozens of Imperial crews had abandoned their burning ships. "Sir," said the second officer, "they are fleeing. We could—" "Finish them," Rourke paused. His gaze hardened as he looked at the flickering dots on the screen. "No, let them live, sir." He turned toward her. "Let them carry the story. Let them remember what they saw." "The dead cannot spread fear." The officer nodded slowly, understanding. Outside, the Vengeance deactivated its main guns. The battlefield quieted. The explosions faded into distant glimmers. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's forces ran. Not from a superior race, not from numbers, but from the ghosts they had created. On the bridge of his burning flagship, Admiral Kraith stood in silence. His communications were dead. His systems failing. The view outside was filled with wreckage and drifting fire. He whispered to himself, "So this is the cost of arrogance. We thought them gone. We thought them weak." A final spark flickered from the console. Kraith looked up one last time, watching the massive Terran ship turn away. "They will come for us all," he muttered. "And no wall will stop them." He closed his eyes as the fire took the bridge. Meanwhile, the Vengeance continued its silent path through the remains of the battle. On the main deck, Rourke stood alone. The crew had begun cleanup and system recovery, but he remained still, watching the stars ahead. His voice was quiet, almost to himself. "They called us savages. They called us animals. But it was never savagery they feared. It was memory." He turned to his crew. "Transmit message to Earth Command. The first engagement is complete." The communication officer nodded. "Message ready, sir." "What shall I mark as status?" Rourke looked out the viewport again, at the wreckage of the Imperial fleet fading behind them. "Mark it as delivered," he said. The Vengeance's engines flared, propelling the ship forward into the vast dark. The stars stretched ahead like distant fires waiting to be claimed. Humanity had awoken from centuries of silence. And this was only the beginning. The battle was over. The void, once alive with the blinding light of destruction, had fallen silent again. Only drifting debris and the cold shimmer of broken metal filled the emptiness where the Empire's pride once stood. The TNS Vengeance floated through the wreckage like a ghost among tombstones. Its black hull reflected the faint glow of dying stars. Every system aboard hummed softly, running silent recovery checks. The crew moved quietly, their voices low, their faces lit by the pale blue light of the consoles. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the center of the bridge, hands behind his back, staring out into the scattered remains. His expression was calm, but his thoughts were heavy. He had led humanity's first strike in centuries. It was victory, but it did not feel like triumph. His second officer, Commander Lyra Hayes, approached him quietly. "Sir," she said, "the battlefield is secure. No Imperial signals remain active." Rourke did not respond immediately. His gaze drifted toward a large chunk of wreckage spinning slowly in the distance. It was the remains of the Empire's flagship. He watched as a torn piece of metal passed by the viewport. the emblem of the Dravok Empire still visible, burned, fractured, but not yet gone. Finally, he spoke. How many survivors? Hayes looked at her pad. Our scans show several hundred escape pods scattered across the sector. Most are damaged. A few still have life signs. Rourke's jaw tightened slightly. Send drones to retrieve what data you can. Leave the pods untouched. Understood, she said, though her voice carried hesitation. Sir, are we certain about that order? If the Empire recovers them, they will regroup. Rourke turned toward her, his expression unreadable. Good, let them. Fear is more powerful than destruction. Those who escape will carry the story farther than any transmission could. Commander Hayes nodded. There was no need for more words. On the outer decks, engineers worked in silence. The railguns cooled, glowing faintly as steam hissed through the vents. The drone bays opened, releasing small silver orbs that glided into the wreckage field, scanning, recording, collecting. Humanity's first engagement had been more than a battle. It was a message carved into the fabric of space itself. The bridge's main holoscreen flickered to life. An incoming signal blinked across the interface, an encrypted message from deep within Terran space. The transmission was weak, but the symbol that appeared made the crew pause. It was the old emblem of Earth. Patch it through, Rourke said quietly. A voice came through, old and steady. This is Terran Command listening. Report, Vengeance. Rourke straightened. This is Captain Elias Rourke reporting mission success. The Empire's forward fleet has been neutralized. Confirmed destruction of primary flagship and 97% of enemy assets. There was silence on the line for a moment, then the voice replied, Understood. You have done what many thought impossible. The signal of your engagement has been detected across 7 sectors. The galaxy knows now. Rourke looked down. Then it begins. Indeed, said the voice. We have been forgotten for too long. Now they will remember. The transmission ended. The bridge fell quiet again. Rourke returned his gaze to the stars. Each one represented a world, some once human, now under the Empire's heel. For centuries, humanity had waited, building in the shadows, learning from its scars. Now every colony, every remnant, every hidden base would hear the same message. Earth still lived. Sir, Hayes said softly. What now? Rourke looked out the viewport, his tone measured. Now we move to the next phase. The Empire will send reinforcements, but by then, every hidden Terran ship will be awake. He turned to the tactical officer. Plot a course through the outer rim. I want to visit the forgotten colonies first. They deserve to know we returned. The officer nodded. Course set, Captain. The Vengeance's engines began to glow again, low and steady. The ship slowly turned, facing the endless black ahead. Far behind, one of the Imperial escape pods floated through the wreckage. Inside, a wounded officer stared at the fading silhouette of the Terran warship. He could barely breathe. His suit cracked, his systems failing. But he managed to activate his recorder. This is Commander Veth of the Empire's 9th Fleet, he rasped. If anyone receives this message, humanity lives. Their technology surpasses ours. One ship destroyed everything. Warn the capital. Warn them all. The message cut off as his oxygen ran out. The pod drifted silently through the ruins, carrying his last words into the dark. Weeks later, across the Empire's central worlds, fragments of that recording began to spread. At first, officials denied it, calling it propaganda, a trick. But then came the images, grainy footage from the battlefield showing a massive dark ship tearing through the Imperial Armada like paper. People whispered. Soldiers questioned. Admirals grew uneasy. On the Empire's throne world, the Emperor himself stood in his grand hall watching the recovered footage. The Terran ship's name, Vengeance, flickered across the screen. His eyes narrowed. Find them, he said coldly, and erase their name from the stars. But it was too late. Humanity's message had already spread. Across hidden colonies, in deep asteroid bases and silent stations, people lifted their heads. They heard the voice of Captain Rourke and the echo of Earth's return. For the first time in centuries, hope stirred among the scattered children of humanity. And as the TNS Vengeance slipped into hyperspace, leaving the silent field of wreckage behind, its engines left a trail of light like a scar across the stars. Rourke's voice came softly over the ship's intercom. This was our first strike, but not our last. Humanity sleeps no more. The stars around them shimmered as the ship vanished into the depths of space. The silence returned, but it was not the silence of death. It was the silence before the storm, Because somewhere in the dark heart of the galaxy humanity was rising again,